Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome here to the Wine with Jimmy channel. Delighted to have you on board. I'm Jimmy Smith. So this is a channel that is designed to help those of you who really want to know a lot more about the wonderful world of wine, but also those of you mainly studying wines. So you can, of course, really enjoy it, get better comprehension, and of course, therefore, go into your exams, if you have them, with much greater confidence. That's what it's all about. Welcome to a series here called The Wines of the World for the Diploma on Oregon in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. So this is the beginning part of Series 2 on the Willamette Valley AVAs. And as you can see, we've split it into 5 parts. The first one is on the overarching Willamette Valley. We'll then go into Dundee Hills, and then we start to group some of them up. After that, we'll talk about Chardonnay Mountains, Ribbon Ridge, Yamhill Carton, and so on. Parts 2 through to 5 are only available on my e-learning portal. That's over at winewithjimmy.com. Big resource portal with loads of things to help you with your studies, mainly the exclusive video content, of course, of which there is a lot of it. So where are we looking for the Willamette Valley? So this is the whole of this darker green area here that you see on your map. It's an AVA, an American Viticultural Area, which was established in 1983. And it's located south of Portland. You can see Portland just here towards the confluence of the Willamette River and also the Columbia River. It has about 1.3 million hectares of land, but only around 10,300 hectares are under vine, but it is making it the largest AVA in the whole of Oregon state. It's approximately 2/3 of Oregon's total. The diverse geographical features you find here have led to the creation of several AVAs. You're, of course, talking about hills and ridges, lower lying areas. You're talking about mountains, like the Chehalis Mountains, for example, and things like gaps in mountains, like the Van Duzer Corridor, for example. We've got over 600 wineries within the Willamette Valley. Remember, there's 1,000 in Oregon as a total, most of them here, of course. And the proximity to Oregon's main cities, like Portland, of course, like Salem, make it very much an attractive proposition for tourists visiting, of course, the rolling green hills of the Willamette Valley. Portland, of course, is your main city. So it's a port city in the Pacific Northwest. It's the largest city in Oregon with a population of about 650,000 people. As I mentioned, it's on the confluence of the Willamette and Columbia rivers, where they meet, is where we find it. And it is one of America's trendiest cities. Of course, you'll know that through social commentary. It's always been a real big haven for foodies as well. So the gastronomical scene here is quite wonderful. McMinnville is another place. If you do visit the whole of the Willamette Valley, you do come to Oregon. Of course, you've got to get the McMinnville t-shirt, but you really, if you want to do the wine region really well, a good central hub for you is McMinnville. Portland is to the north, so in the center really of most of the AVAs we find McMinnville, and it has a really good main street called 3rd Street, great hotels down there, wonderful restaurants, and many tasting rooms. You've got the Willamette vineyards, Willamette Valley vineyards there. Troon, who are actually from the south of Oregon, have a brilliant tasting room there as well. Well worth visiting in McMinnville. So the location further now, in reference to the locations around the ocean and the mountains. So the AVA is in the western part. As you can see here, it's this green area, Portland and Salem, Eugene at the bottom. So this is in the western part of Oregon, and it's only really about 50 miles from the Pacific Ocean. But it is bordered here by the Oregon Coast Ranges, or the Coastal Ranges. and this provides some protection, but nevertheless, various parts of the Willamette Valley are affected by that blue arrow there, the Pacific cold winds. The one that comes through here, another comes through the gap like the Van Duzer corridor, for example. The valley as a whole is one of the coldest and wettest areas in the whole of Oregon, but it still benefits from warm and dry summers with long hours of sunshine. Remember, we've talked about that in series 1. It is a rainy area, yes, but a lot of that is winter rainfall, and therefore you get dry conditions during summer, which enable really good ripening. You get protection from cold winds from the north, from things like the Chehalem Mountains. So there are lots of little mesoclimates to be looked at in this area as well. The climate here, just to reiterate, we've got some more key factors, in fact, here. So the diurnal range here in the Willamette Valley can be fairly significant, certainly in the growing season. As air rises from the warm interior of central Willamette Valley or central Oregon, it causes cool coastal air to be pulled inland, and that's kind of what you're seeing here. Now there should be an H over here in the warmer zone as well, but cold air is then attracted to that as it comes in, and it's really sort of particularly strong during the early part of the day and in the AVAs of the Van Duzer corridor, the Eola-Amity Hills, and to a certain extent McMinnville. So there's the Van Duzer corridor, there's McMinnville, the t-shirt of course, and the Eola-Amity Hills close to Salem down here. So you see that it gets pulled here. This is some of the cooler parts as it comes into the central landmass of the Willamette Valley. Now, a lack of humidity in the air over the dry growing season means that the temperatures can rise and fall quickly. That's your diurnal shift in play. Now, if you have any comments or any questions or any concerns, please pop them in the comments section below this video. I would love to hear from you. If you've been to Oregon, if you've been to Portland, if you've been to Salem, if you've been to McMinnville, if you've been to any of these places, or if you just love Oregon wines, you've drunk them, any favorites you may have, please do get in touch. Now, reiterating this point, because we talked about it on an earlier series, the wind and dry summer reduces mildew and disease pressure here, and it enables very sustainable growing practices, organic practices, and of course biodynamic. For example, many producers here in the Willamette do not employ irrigation despite you've got dry summer months, but typically you've got good storage. There's good amounts of clay around, good storage of water, certainly from your autumnal and spring rains. So there's still good access there, of course. But also legislation prevents all but the longest established producers from using water and rivers. And in order to provide water for irrigation, producers would need to build ponds on their property or little lakes, water reservoirs to collect the water in winter months. Many of Oregon's grape growers are on small plots of land, and of course irrigation would be something they wouldn't even consider because of the expense and often the pain of setting it up. A diverse range of soils are found in the area. We've discussed this on the geological section in the previous series, everything from the marine sedimentary soils through volcanic basalts and then the wind-blown loess. Here we find fertile loam soils, which are found on the valley floors. That's around sites from the valley all the way up to about 60 meters of altitude. And they're left by floods of the Columbia Gorge that occurred several thousand years ago. These soils are most suited to Pinot Gris, and where Pinot Noir is grown on these, its vigor must be managed because it will grow quite well, and the wines will become fairly simple, fairly thin. The vine training systems in place will help with this, things like Geneva Double Curtain, and in your picture, the Scott Henry training system. At the higher altitudes in the Willamette Valley, there's a mixture of the marine sedimentary soils, typically sandstone, volcanic basalts, and then the wind-blown loess. And they're generally most of these are generally low in fertility. And here, in this instance, you'll have smaller cordon-trained Guillot replacement cane with vertical shoot positioning trellising in place. Then also here, as of 2022, there are 9 nested AVAs within the Willamette Valley AVA. These are the Dundee Hills. Here, I'll highlight this for you. So it's just about here, kind of midway between Portland and Salem. Then just to the north of that, to the north and to the east, is Chehalem Mountains. Then you have Ribbon Ridge. Ribbon Ridge is just north of that area, one of the smallest of the AVAs. You have the Yamhill Carton District just off to the west of that. The Van Duzer Corridor down in the south, along with the Eola Amity Hills close to Salem, and McMinnville, of course, around the town of the same name. And then the 2 new AVAs, the Tualatin Hills in the north, and then the Laurelwood District, which is actually a part that adjoins onto Chehalem Mountains. So they are all within the Willamette Valley. Now, in all of these sub-AVAs or nested AVAs, and also in the Willamette Valley as a whole, Pinot Noir is the most dominant grape variety, generally between 60 and 80% of the plantings. Then Pinot Gris, and then Chardonnay. The pie chart that I've shown you here is actually the general numbers across the Willamette Valley as a whole. So 68% Pinot Noir, so nearly 7 out of 10 bottles. Pinot Gris at 7%, Chardonnay at 9%, then Riesling and Syrah at 1%, then others there at 4%. So really significant amount of the big 3 there. Accounting really for 9 out of 10 bottles are going to be Chardonnay, Pinot Gris, and Pinot Noir. Okay, let's have a look at one of these really wonderful Google Earth 3D videos to bring this wonderful area to life. We are going to look here, of course, at the Willamette Valley and all of its relevant AVAs. We'll begin with looking at the mountain ranges. So we're going to identify the Cascade Mountains and the Coast Range. So let's take a look first of all. So there you are in terms of North America. We're going to hone in on Oregon, the state of Oregon there, lying north of California. There you are. So we'll discuss first of all the 2 topographical features which hem in the Willamette Valley. So we have the Cascade Mountain Range. And the Cascades are very long. You can see they've been highlighted there. They're about 260 miles worth in Oregon. So of course it goes well into Washington State and Canada, and down into California as well. Huge mountain range, some quite important mountains within here like Jefferson and Mount Hood. The other mountain range, which is the coastal one, is much smaller. That's called the Coast Range, identified in orange there. And the Willamette Valley is what sits in between these 2. So the Coast Ranges offers some protection against the Alaskan current, which brings down that cooler weather and wetter weather. In green, there's the Willamette Valley. Around 10,300 hectares. It's about 68% of Oregon's total production, and it's about 50 miles from the Pacific, and it's majorly dominated by Pinot Noir. Our nested AVAs, first of all, we have the Chehalem Mountains. This is about 20 miles south of Portland. It's about 1,100 hectares, and it sits upon a ridge, and it has all of the different soil types in play. So the Willackenzie, the Jura, and the wind-blown loess type soils as well. So it's quite a diverse area. So that's the Chehalem Mountains. Next, we have the Dundee Hills, famous, of course, for the Lett family who first started the Eyrie vineyard. This is about 28 miles southwest of Portland, about 900 hectares on a warmer location and on volcanic Jura soils. Ribbon Ridge AVA next, a small square mile area, 6.1 square miles, 260 hectares on Willackenzie soils. Then we have the Yamhill Carton, famous for the Campbells planting the Elk Cove vineyard, about 1,000 hectares here on Willackenzie soils. Then we have the Van Duzer Corridor, which sits in that corridor in the Coast Range. This is about 40 to 50% stronger winds and cooler here on Willackenzie, about 400 hectares. Then also near Salem, like the Van Duzer Corridor, you've got the Eola Amity Hills. about 1,220 hectares here on Jory and Willackenzie. Both of these areas sit near Salem, quite far south of Portland, but affected by the cooler conditions of the Van Duzer corridor. Then eventually we've got McMinnville, a beautiful place with a wonderful third street. And then you've got about 300 hectares you find there, cooler and drier, about 40 miles southwest of Portland on Jory and Willackenzie soils. That's volcanic and marine sedimentary. Great place. Remember, dominated by Pinot Noir, phenomenal array of AVAs. Okay, so next up is in fact Dundee Hills. So please do join me for the Dundee Hills video. So it is this one just here. Part 2, 3, 4, and 5 will only be available to those of you who subscribe to my e-learning portal. So go across there, have a look at all the beauty and the wonder that you can find, and subscribe. If you do have any comments, questions, or concerns, please do get in touch. Comment on this video below. Tell me about an Oregon wine you love, or a specific grape variety, or even a producer. Get in touch with any questions as well about anything that's been discussed in this video. And if you do find yourself in the United Kingdom, come and say hi, potentially for a class, maybe a glass, more likely a bottle. I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now. Goodbye.